本日はお忙しい中、本ウェビナーにご参加いただき、誠にありがとうございます。司会進行を務めさせていただきます、合理化マーケティング株式会社の富樫千夏と申します。どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。合理化マーケティングは、人に寄り添う合理化で、世界をもっと自由に、もっと豊かにをパーパスに掲げています。本日は、アジア市場の可能性を探るリテールトレンドと参入戦略をテーマに2名のスピーカーをお招きしております。前半では、当社最高デジタル責任者の堀口が日系企業の海外進出の近況を、後半では APEC マーケティングアクティベーションコンサルタントのビビアン・コックスがインドネシアの小売業に関する知見を皆様にお届けいたします。ビビアンさんのプレゼンテーションは英語で行われます。必要な方は大変お手数ですが、Zoom の字幕機能をオンにしていただき、字幕言語を日本語に設定くださいませ。イメージ画像をただいま共有させていただいております。ご質問のある方は画面下の Q&A 機能をご利用ください。最後にまとめてご回答させていただきます。また、ウェビナー終了後はアンケートにご協力をお願い申し上げます。ご回答いただいた方には特典として本日の資料を後日メールにてお送りさせていただきます。それでは堀口さん、ビデオオンにしていただけますでしょうか。よろしくお願いいたします。
はい。皆さんどうもお疲れ様です。合理化マーケティングの CEO である堀口と申します。よろしくお願いいたします。本日は私の方から、本日のウェビナーのイントロダクションとして、簡単に、概況というところでちょっとご紹介をさせていただきたいなと思います。アジア市場の可能性を探るリテールトレンドと参入戦略と、インドネシアのケーススタディから学ぶというところ、このウェビナーに向けてのイントロダクションということでご説明をさせていただきます。よろしくお願いします。まず、海外進出の背景と傾向というところでまとめております。コロナが終結して、近年の為替影響とか、新たな市場の獲得を目的に海外進出を検討されている企業が多いのではないかというところで、背景がありまして、今後の海外進出方針というところで、すでに海外拠点を持つ大企業で言いますと、22年度から23年度に対して2%アップ。で、海外拠点を持たない大企業に関しましても、22年度から23年度にかけて、6.6% アップというところで、今後新たに進出したいというところで、皆様、かなり海外に対する興味、関心というのをお持ちなのかなというふうに認識をしております。次に、海外進出先としての選定理由というところですね。海外進出するにあたり、市場規模、成長性が最も重視されるというところで、圧倒的に市場規模の成長性、市場規模と成長性というところがですね、高い数値として、皆様に選択理由として選択されているというところになっております。そういった中、今回我々がインドネシアに注目した理由というところで、こちらまとめておりますけれども、米国、インド、ベトナム、中国についてはすでに進出されている企業も多いというふうに認識をしています。インドですね。で、EU 対にはありますけれども、その中で次に注目される国として、市場性、市場規模成長性も高い、このインドネシアが、かなりターゲットになるのではないかというところで、今回インドネシアに注目をさせていただいております。続きまして、インドネシアの概要となります。人口と GDP の推移というところで、インドネシアの人口は約 2.7 億人で GDP は1兆ドルを超え、上昇段階となっているというふうに言えるのかなと思っていますというところですね。2.7 億人いらっしゃって、インドネシアがオレンジですけども、徐々に、日本に、GDP としても近づいてきているというようなところになるのかなと。比較対象としてベトナム、こちら挙げていますけども、より高い形で GDP が推移しているというところでございます。続いて、人口構成と親日度というところで、人口構成としては若年層が多いというのが、 ベトナム、インドネシアともに、顕著な領域なのかなというところで、明らかに30代以下ですね、の人々っていうのがかなり多いですよということを示しているとともに、あと、日本語学習の多さというところを今回親日度という形で捉えていますけども、中国に次いで2番目に、日本語学習者の数が多いというふうに言われています。これもやはり海外進出するといった中で、コミュニケーションが取りやすいという観点からも、インドネシアが注目してもいいのではないかなというところで考えております。はい。私からのイントロダクションは以上となります。じゃあ、富樫さんお戻しします。
堀口さん、どうもありがとうございました。ここからビビアンさんのセクションに移りたいと思います。So Viv, thank you so much for this opportunity. Could you please turn on your video and do a quick mic test, please?
Thank you, Takashi-san, and thank you everyone for listening to my presentation in Japanese.
Okay, thank you. I can hear you very clearly. Can you, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, just getting the presentation up. Apologies. So, apologies, everybody. Indonesia's strategic location in Southeast Asia makes it a gateway to the ASEAN market. Can you just jump onto the next slide? Thank you. Makes it a gateway to the ASEAN market, offering access to a large and growing consumer base. It has shown impressive economic growth and is now the world's 4th most populous nation and the 10th largest economy by purchasing power parity. It has a young and dynamic population with a significant portion under the age of 30, which is driving consumption and innovation, which is benefiting businesses in various sectors. And recent reforms have improved Indonesia's ease of doing business, making it more attractive to foreign investors. Next. Indonesia's economic conditions are very positive. In fact, they rank in the top 10 globally. A nominal GDP exceeding USD $1.7 trillion, ranked 7th globally from a GDP PPP perspective, and year-on-year growth of 4+%. In fact, in Q1 24, their growth was 5.11%, and they are forecasting inflation to stabilise under 4%. Next, I'm now going to tell you a little bit about the Indonesia retail sector. Next. The retail sector accounts for over 10% of Indonesia's GDP, and like the broader economy, has grown by 4.8% year on year, and is forecast to continue to grow at that same rate. There are diverse retail formats with regional variations due to the differences in population density, income levels, and cultural preferences. Modern trade, which are the malls and department stores, is growing. And as I touched on, 52% of the population are categorised as young, which is aged between the age of 18 and 35, with a growing middle class, which is driving consumer spending. Digitalisation and e-commerce are rapidly emerging as innovative solutions become a focus for consumers, which is changing the landscape for how Indonesian consumers shop and have access to international brands. Next. The retail sector is very diverse from a format perspective. It's the same across most of Southeast Asia. There are the traditional retail, which are the mom and pop stores, which still dominate, especially in the rural areas. And they account for 60% of the FMCG market. They offer a very unique shopping experience with a wide array of products, which is what Indonesian consumers are used to. But as I mentioned, modern trade is gaining popularity and is attracting both domestic and international retailers. They are offering a more westernized shopping experience and are popular with the young population. Small format or mini markets, which also comprises convenience stores, have the second highest share of the FMCG market with 17%. And that sector is growing as consumers are rapidly looking for more convenient ways to shop. What's also very important to note is that along with bricks and mortar or shops, e-commerce has seen remarkable growth due to the improved internet infrastructure and rising smartphone adoption. And currently there are three key players, Lazada, Shopee and Tokopedia, which have 45% of the market share. Next. There is an enormous opportunity in Indonesia, but it is important to know that there are some challenges as well. The infrastructure is still quite underdeveloped, which is impacting exporters and operational efficiency, but is a focus for the government. With a dispersed population spread across 6,000 islands, establishing distribution channels is also crucial because tracking and time to reach the final destination continue to be a challenge. And innovation is becoming essential, especially in packaging and retail shelf space, because attracting consumers is a highly competitive market now. Next. The FMCG sector is highly competitive with both domestic and international players. And to be successful, there are a number of key strategies. Focusing on the emerging regions, there are still many untapped opportunities in rural areas and secondary cities, which are presenting enormous potential due to the population. The constant innovation on both products and services is essential, differentiating from your competitors and meeting the evolving consumer needs. A strong online presence is also essential to boost sales and brand visibility. And consumers are increasingly favouring sustainable products and brands that are socially responsible. Next. There are growth opportunities in a number of product categories. There is a growing demand for sustainable products, both organic food and beverages, eco-friendly cleaning products, and also beauty brands that have a focus on the way that the products are made, the way that the products are packaged. Premium products are also in demand due to the rapidly growing middle class. They're looking for imported food and beverages, high-end cosmetics and personal care, and they're willing to pay a premium for those products. Health and wellness products, such as vitamins, organic food and beverages, is seeing significant growth as the young population focus on their health and well-being. And with the world's largest Muslim majority country, there is a huge opportunity in the halal market across all categories. And some Japanese brands have already made inroads into adapting for that. Next. The consumer trends are also evolving. The improved customer experience is key. They're looking at digital transformation with advanced technologies such as AI. They're looking for a seamless omni-channel shopping experience through integrating online and offline, and the emergence of super apps, which is offering multiple services within a single platform. This is a key area for international companies to come in and support the Indonesia market on this rapid transformation. Localization of products, campaigns and stores is also important as it resonates with the local consumers. And as I mentioned, sustainability is increasingly becoming important as consumers become concerned about sustainable practices and eco-friendly products. So now that I've told you a little bit about the Indonesia retail sector, I want to talk a little about some of the Japanese brands and companies that are also seeing success in Indonesia. 75% nearly of Indonesia's total imports were from Asia. China was the largest, and Japan's exports was valued at US $14.5 billion in 2023. And there are currently approximately 2,000 Japanese companies operating in Indonesia. They have local businesses set up, they have local Indonesians employed, contributing approximately 8.5% to Indonesia's GDP. There are a number of reasons that Japanese brands are succeeding in Indonesia. And a key metric of that success is that research says that 49.5% of Japanese companies in Indonesia plan to continue to expand due to that success and the growth in the market. So these are businesses or companies that are already established that have significant plans for further expansion, both within the market as well as how the work that they're doing in Indonesia can be leveraged across the region. There's a couple of reasons that they've been successful. Japanese brands are known for their quality and their customer service, and Indonesian consumers value that. Automotive is by far the most successful sector, and Japanese brands dominate with 98% of the market share, which is incredible. And in fact, they also have launched local brands, Indonesian brands in the market, which has helped them further drive that dominance. Consumer electronics also perform well due to the high quality, customer service, and innovation. As I mentioned, innovation is key in terms of attracting these young and middle class consumers. Also, Indonesian consumers feel that Japanese brands are committed to sustainable practices, which resonates well with the environmentally conscious consumers. Next. Japanese companies have built several interdependencies in Indonesia. Japanese companies have invested heavily in various sectors. They are employing a significant number of Indonesian workers, which is contributing to skills development and technology transfer. And they are also involved in major infrastructure projects which will benefit Indonesia's future. They're seen as a key strategic partner in the development of the Indonesia market. And Japanese companies are also bringing advanced technology and innovation, particularly in the automotive and electronics sector, which is helping modernize local industries and improve productivity, which is essential for a market like Indonesia, which is such a large population, and also seeing, again, that middle class grow. Next. It is important to note that whilst I've talked about the significant opportunity in Indonesia and the significant opportunity for Japanese companies to expand into Indonesia, it is important to be aware of the obstacles and plan for how to address. Cultural sensitivity, competition, logistics hurdles, currency volatility, and tax complexity are a few of the obstacles, but the size of the opportunity means it is worth exploring. The market size, the growing economy, the strategic location to not only the rest of ASEAN, but also to the rest of the world. Low labour costs, and also, given what's happening around the world, the political and social stability within Indonesia. They also have the government also has a very important activity underway called Transition to Industry 4.0. And that is focusing on some of the key industries, including automotives and electronics, food and beverage. And the initiative is expected to add significant value to Indonesia's economy and position it as a hub for innovation and technology, and attracting international companies looking to tap into the dynamic and evolving market that is in Indonesia. Now, there are two ways for Japanese brands to enter the Indonesia market. There is an opportunity to import products into Indonesia and then use local sales and distribution partners, or establishing local businesses and manufacturing locally. You'll see here in the table that I've highlighted 5 of the key sectors and described whether they are predominantly importing or whether they have established local businesses and are manufacturing and selling and distributing within the market. Food and beverage, excluding alcohol, apparel, consumer electronics, and automotive is largely local business and manufacturer. And the key reasons are that Indonesia has a very cost-effective labour market. They are considered a strategic location, not just as a centre to manufacture and sell within Indonesia, but also an opportunity to export to other markets. And I'm going to share a case study in a little bit, and it'll talk to that point. Raw material availability, and for the food and beverage, the local cultural nuances such as halal certification make it imperative that you are actually manufacturing locally. Beauty and alcohol are largely imported, and that is because of the quality control and the brand management. For alcohol, also some additional taxes on production of alcohol versus importing it into the market as well. But what I just want to make very important is that if you are choosing to import, finding a local partner with a strong local entity for importing and distribution inside Indonesia will be key to the success, given the scale of the market, as I've already shared with you. Next. Several Japanese brands have a strong presence in Indonesia, particularly in noodles, biscuits, and confectionery. These brands have done a lot to understand the Indonesian consumers and have ensured that their product and their sales strategy has evolved to meet the opportunity. If you look at Kikkoman, who's one of the leading soy sauce brands in Indonesia, they now have a campaign running where they are saying that they are the best halal cooking sauce. So they have now targeted the significant Muslim market as a way of driving sales and taking market share in the soy sauce category. Similarly, Ajinomoto are focused on health and sustainability, and that's how they are marketing their products and how they are focused on the evolving brand strategy around the products that they are selling inside Indonesia. Next. For Calpis, they have introduced new product variants to cater to the different consumer preferences. And they've been really smart at segmenting the market to target the different age groups. And their product, the suite of products or brands that they now offer in Indonesia is extensive. And again, very targeted to the different demographic. From an alcohol perspective, I mentioned that they're largely imported. Whilst the whiskey market is growing, the Indonesian government has recently increased the excise duty rates on alcohol beverages, which has made alcohol more expensive. But interestingly, Indonesian consumers are willing to pay a higher price as they believe there is more variety and better quality from international brands. And it's also seen as prestigious to drink or serve imported alcohol. So there is an opportunity again for Japanese alcohol brands in Indonesia. Next. Premium beauty brands continue to perform very well due to the changing consumer demand, and there are already a number of prominent Japanese brands in the Indonesia market. This category is growing as the higher disposable income and again, that preference for quality and premium products, although it is an extremely competitive sector with a lot of local brands emerging in Indonesia as well, given that young population. Next. Next. But if a company or a Japanese company or brand weren't quite ready to take a decision on importing or setting up a business locally, there are other avenues or channels that you could use initially to sell those products. The whole emergence of supermarkets, e-commerce sites, and I've listed a couple here in the presentation where, again, Japanese brands are being sold, some specifically targeted to the Indonesia consumers, to the Japanese consumers or expats living in the Indonesia market. Also, the online presence for food and beverage and apparel. Again, I talked about how rapidly those e-commerce channels are growing. And this is a great channel or environment for international brands to make their products available. And I've also talked here about the importers and distributors also being a channel or a way to enter the market, as they can take the burden of the local activities away from international brands and leverage their contacts and their knowledge of the market. So again, I think there's already a lot of Japanese brands, companies successfully operating in Indonesia, but there is still a lot of opportunity. Next. I said I was going to just cover a case study, and we have picked up Pocky, a very prominent brand. Next. So as many of you would know, the Pocky brand was launched in 1966. It is sold internationally, but what is really interesting is that in 2023, Pocky made up 76% of Glyco Asia Pacific's total confectionery sales. So a significant portion of their sales come from Pocky. And of that 76%, 46% comes from Thailand. In fact, they have 2 factories operating in Thailand, and 36% of those sales are coming from Indonesia. And they classify this as their fastest growing market. Next. Glyco Wings was established in Indonesia in 2013. So they took the decision to open a business, to establish a local Indonesia entity, and to build those manufacturing capabilities locally. From the 2018 to 2022, their net sales grew by a compound rate of 31%, with Pocky accounting for more than 90% of that growth. So these are significant numbers that Pocky were able to drive, or Glyco Wings were able to drive in the Indonesia market. In fact, in 2022, they opened their largest ever factory globally in Indonesia, specifically for Pocky. And this factory is serving not only Indonesia, but the growing Southeast Asian market and North America. So they're now looking at Indonesia as not only the market where they are going to produce for the local market, but due to the reasons that I outlined previously, low labor rates and the size of the market, they've now decided to make this one of their biggest manufacturing environments or sites globally, and they will distribute internationally. So a really interesting way for them to drive their growth. And again, they're focusing very much on those, the young population and the middle class, to continue to drive that demand. Next. Glyco moved into Indonesia for several strategic reasons. Again, the significant opportunity for growth, market size and the young population. The strategic location, and I just touched on this, not just about selling in Indonesia, but selling globally. And again, that local production, that ability to reduce costs and improve the supply chain efficiency. And I talked a little earlier about the importance and focus on digital and innovation. And that is not just about how Indonesian companies sell or market their products, but it's also how they leverage the expertise of global companies from markets like Japan, who are very, very strong in establishing efficient supply chains, efficient manufacturing sites. So they're leveraging and relying on that expertise of companies like Japan for many reasons. And according to a Poki spokesperson, Indonesia is going to be Glyco's new growth engine due to its massive population and rising middle class. So again, they are putting significant effort into the Indonesia market, the Indonesia manufacturing facility. Next. They're targeting that young population. Again, just a reminder, 52% of the population, or approximately 100 million consumers. So it is a huge, huge opportunity. And they've also established a number of distribution channels to, again, expand those sales opportunities. And they're not just the traditional environments that you would expect to see, but they've also expanded to include schools, which is allowing them to get, again, to that maximum consumer base. So really understanding the Indonesia consumers, the Indonesia landscape, and how to drive sales within the local market. Next. Poki have implemented several marketing campaigns and events to boost brand awareness and engagement, including Poki Day, which is really interesting. So a day that is all about the brand. They've relied and leveraged using Indonesian idols in commercials, in TV advertisements, so that they could transform the brand into a cool and fashionable, sweet brand. They've held sampling events at schools to help spread awareness and popularity. And they've launched a Poki after Ramadan campaign. And what was really smart about this was that they associated the campaign and the brand with a very, very prominent occasion in Indonesia. So again, they've taken a global brand and they've ensured that they understand the Indonesia consumer. They've understood the marketing strategies that work well inside Indonesia. And now, again, they've taken that global brand and really localized it. And I think that is where the opportunity is for international brands. It's not only about entering the market, but it's really about understanding the consumers, understanding how you drive that consumer engagement. What channels are they accessing? How do those strategies evolve as the opportunity evolves? And again, I think Poki is a really great case study. And I touched on Kikoman and other brands, again, that have done this really, really well. Next. So I just want to, I think, summarize everything that I've shared. And I know there has been a lot to take in, but I thought I would just recap why Indonesia presents a significant opportunity for Japanese brands. Again, a population of 277 million people and growing. 60% of that population middle class, which is the most commercially attractive segment. Fastest growing Asia market, which is really incredible. The overall retail sector forecast to grow at 4.8% year on year. In fact, I think one of the few global markets that is forecasting that kind of growth rate, probably only seeing that in some of the other Asia and developing markets. The food retail sector is amongst the largest in Asia Pacific. And there are a number of growth categories, including premium brands and those focused on sustainability, which is where Japanese brands are very strong. The Indonesia consumers are willing to pay for Japanese brands because they consider them to have quality products and provide exceptional customer service. And I think most importantly, as I mentioned in one of the previous slides, 49% of the Japanese companies already in Indonesia plan on expanding. So I think that demonstrates the success that those companies have and are finding in the Indonesia market. And for many of them, it won't just be about, selling or driving growth inside Indonesia, but how could an Indonesia manufacturing site or hub become the center for wider ASEAN and global export and distribution in very favorable economic conditions. Next. And just a couple of things for you to consider. Indonesian consumers value brands and products that are affordable and high quality. That economic growth is strong with increased purchasing power from that growing middle class. The growth of digital marketing and e-commerce platforms presents an ideal way to reach Indonesian consumers. It also presents an opportunity for international companies to enter the market on the back of e-commerce platforms, on the back of innovative digital solutions. It could be an alternate e-commerce platform. It could be an innovative in-store solution that retailers could use to drive sales and consumer engagement. Understanding that local consumer behaviour and preferences is the key to differentiation and brand adoption. There is a lot of competition. It is difficult to stand out, but a key part of that is to understand and respect the Indonesian culture and tradition and leverage that understanding to tailor the brand experience to the Indonesian desire. And I think very important in these very challenging global times, the Indonesian government is implementing reforms to make it more attractive for international companies to operate in Indonesia. They want to drive growth. They want to let international brands and companies enter the market and collaborate with them on projects like infrastructure, technology, innovation, but also to bring products and solutions that are sustainable, that are ethical, and that let them be seen as a very innovative country. So I'll finish there. Thank you for your time. I hope you found this information valuable.
Yeah, thank you very much, babe. それではここから Q&A セッションに移ってまいりたいと思います。お時間の許す限り質問を受けさせていただきますので、Q&A の機能からご質問のある方はお送りいただければと思います。堀口さん、それではよろしくお願いいたします。
はい、 それではですね、いただいている質問から、はい、順に、質問させていただきます。まず一つ目ですね。本日はありがとうございましたということで、インドネシアの若い世代が持続可能性に強い関心を示しているというところで、このようなトピックに関する早期教育このような結果っていうのは、早期教育の結果なのか、それとも他の要因が関係しているのかっていうところに関してご質問ありましたというところです。
Thank you, Horiguchi-san. So if I can just clarify, you're asking me about the young population and their focus on sustainability. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yes, I think like the young population around the world, they are very focused on sustainability, on climate change, on deforestation. And I think there's a number of reasons for that. I think it's being discussed in schools from a very young age, in universities. But I also think it is linked to social media, social platforms. In Indonesia, young population are one of the highest users of social media, platforms like TikTok. And I think there is an enormous amount of information being channeled through those platforms on sustainability. And I think they're becoming very aware and conscious of how we all need to change the way we live, possibly what we purchase. And I think that Indonesia young population are no different. I think they want to feel like they're helping the planet and helping the future. And as I touched on, I think that the sort of the increase that the consumer spending and the way that is shifting in Indonesia, as I said, I think they want to be seen to be purchasing sustainable brands and purchasing brands from companies who are have a sustainable strategy and presence. So I think it's an amazing opportunity. And I think the importance of sustainability and sustainable products in Indonesia will only grow over the coming years. And again, presents a great opportunity, I think, for international brands who are maybe more advanced in their sustainability journey. I hope that answered the question.
Okay. Thank you. では、クエスチョン2っていうところで、ビビアンさんの経験から、企業が市場から撤退する際に直面する一般的な課題はどのようなものがあるでしょうかという質問です。
Yes, I hope I've understood the question. You're asking me if a company wanted to exit the market, what challenges would they need to be aware of, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you. Look, I think it depends probably on how they're operating in the market. So if they have a local business with manufacturing facilities and people employed, then they would need to consider activities around people. What happens to all of the people that they have employed? What are those HR implications? Again, employing people in Indonesia, there are some complexities, so they would need to be aware of that. So I think people, what they do with the people who are employed for them would be one of their priorities. I think secondly, again, if they've been a manufacturer, how do they close down facilities, buildings and assets that they may have? what happens to inventory that hasn't been sold. So I think a key part would be to think about how does that dissolvement happen. You need to sell premises, consider again what happens with inventory that's been left over. And I think last but not least, considerations around tax, potentially any sort of funds that you've got in the market in terms of whether you're able to actually take that money out of the market. So they're the things that sort of immediately come to mind. I think if you were only importing into the market, it's very different. But if you have established, and I think reputation, and I think you need to consider, there need to be some consideration given to how you explain why you're moving out of the market. And if you're a global brand, what flow-on effect might there be to other markets if you were pulling out of a very prominent market like Indonesia? Other markets may also ask or want to know why you're moving out of that market. So I think they're the key points that I imagine you'd need to consider. I hope, is that okay? Did that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
OK。じゃあ、クエスチョン3ですね。現地の市場調査を行うにあたり、グローバルな調査会社、日本の会社、どれに依頼するか迷っていますと。適切なパートナーを選ぶ際の留意点、があれば教えてほしいということなんですが。
Okay, you're asking me if you think that you should use a local market research company versus using someone from Japan or another market. Is that the question?
はい、そうです。
Yeah, I think from my experience, some of that initial research can possibly be done outside the market in terms of maybe just identifying the bigger opportunity, understanding what competitors are doing, understanding some of the information like we've just shared about the sort of the economic conditions, the opportunity. But I think once you've progressed past that and you really then want to understand how you're going to validate the opportunity, consider how you would actually commence operating inside the market, setting up a business in the market, then I think it's essential that you find a local partner, a local expertise who have worked with other international companies and helped them move into the market in terms of then really helping both validate the opportunity and making sure that that kind of the high level understanding is correct, but then really being able to talk much more specifically around what it would take to set up inside the market. What are the local regulatory requirements? What do you need to do to set a business up in Indonesia that lets you operate? How do you hire people? And in my experience, we've typically found partners with demonstrated experience helping brands move into the market. And then also finding local tax and legal consultants, as well as opportunities to join industry forums, network on LinkedIn. I think starting to talk to not competitors, but similar brands who may be going, you may think you're going to have a similar experience with. We talked about Pocky, or I talked about Pocky as a case study. How could you reach out to brands and companies that have already successfully established a business in the market? What did they do? Who did they work with? So I think that the sort of that very initial identification of the opportunity can be done outside the market. And then I think if you really see that opportunity and you want to progress, I would find local partners to work with for the next phases of implementation.
OK, thank you. では次のクエスチョン4というところで、質問させてください。デジタルマーケティングが盛んとの話がありましたが、ジャカルタ市内でのデジタルサイネージなどのアウトオブホームの広告の状況っていうのはいかがでしょうかっていう質問です。富樫、ちょっと。
Vivian, you mentioned that digital marketing is getting important. And the question is, how is the situation regarding out of home advertising, such as signage in Jakarta? If you have comments, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, digital marketing is very broad. And I think there's both the online and the offline experience. So online being those online platforms and environments to drive digital marketing. But I think Horiguchi-san's question was related more to that kind of what we would call offline. So the actual retail environment, is that correct? Like in stores, in out of home environments, correct? Yeah. Yeah, I think if you went into Jakarta and especially into the modern retail, so malls, supermarkets, department stores, I think quite advanced from a digital signage perspective, a digital marketing perspective. But outside that channel, when you then talk about the mini markets, convenience, those channels, I think it's more underdeveloped. And a big part of that, and this is the same across Southeast Asia, so Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, there's a couple of constraints, and it's largely around infrastructure. They don't have the space for, digital signage. They don't have the infrastructure to run the digital signage. They don't have power and connectivity. So it's still quite traditional in terms of it being physical, sort of a point of sale, physical displays. But I don't think there's any doubt that that is evolving. I think it's another opportunity in the Indonesia market for specialist agencies and partners to come in who understand digital signage, who understand digital marketing, and who can work with local activation partners to actually then implement those solutions. So again, from my experience, working with some of the very big global FMCG clients, there was a strong desire to be able to leverage digital. But I think, again, there are still some challenges that will improve as, again, the modern trade expands and the technology, I think, gets better.
ありがとうございました。それでは、一旦質問が出揃いましたので、ここで本日のウェビナーを終了させていただきたいと思います。 アンケートはチャット欄に貼ってある URL、もしくは退出後に表示されるアンケートページよりアクセスしていただけますので、どうぞご回答に協力をお願いいたします。以上で本日のウェビナー終了させていただきます。改めまして本日ご参加の皆様に感謝申し上げます。どうもありがとうございました。